home turned to ashes. My own family treated me like a beggar.
It was then that I called the billionaire I raised myself. It's good that you're here. Please follow my full story and leave a comment telling me from which city you are watching. That way I'll know how far this story has traveled. My name is Eleanor and I am 63 years old. I never imagined that at my age I would see myself standing in a downpour, completely soaked, begging my daughter to let me sleep in her house. But that's fate. It hits you when you least expect it and knocks the wind out of you. The fire started at 3 in the morning. I was woken by the smell of smoke filling my lungs. The flames were already consuming the kitchen. My ranch, the thing I had built for 40 years, vanished into the ashes in just a few hours. The firefighters reported that it was all due to an electrical fault in the main barn. 40 years of effort, of dreams, of memories, all lost. I didn't have insurance that covered everything. The last few years had been very hard and I had to stop paying for full coverage just to keep the ranch afloat. Now, with nothing in my hands and only the clothes on my back, my only option was to find my daughter Jessica. I went to her house in Highland Park, one of the most exclusive areas of Dallas, and rang the doorbell. It was a spectacular mansion with impeccable gardens and a huge fountain at the entrance. All of that had been paid for with the money of her husband, Rick. He is a businessman who always treated me like I was something dirty stuck to the sole of his shoe. The door opened and there he was, Rick, in one of his expensive suits and that fake smile I knew so well. "Eleanor," he said without even inviting me in. "What are you doing here?" "There was a fire," I replied, trying not to break down. "I lost my house, I lost everything. I need a place to stay just for a few days until I sort this out." Rick interrupted me with a dry laugh. "Here? Don't even dream of it. I came to see my daughter," I told him while feeling the rain soaking through my clothes. "Jessica," he shouted into the house. "Your mother is here." My daughter came out behind him. She was wearing a silk dress that surely cost more than I made in a month. She looked me up and down with disgust as if she were seeing a beggar at her door. "Oh, Mom, what happened to you? You're all dirty." I told her about the fire, about how I had lost everything. I was just hoping for a hug, compassion, anything to remind me that she was still my daughter. But instead she just crossed a look with Rick. "You can't stay here," my own daughter sentenced, crossing her arms. "This house is very refined. What will the neighbors think? What will they think?" I asked, feeling the humiliation like a slap in the face. Rick stepped forward, blocking the entrance completely. "Look, Mrs. Eleanor," he said with annoyance, "we don't mean to be rude, but you have to understand us. This is a luxury residential area. We can't have homeless people sleeping here. What will the neighbors say? Our friends from the Dallas Country Club." "But I'm your wife's mother," I told him, feeling my voice break. "And you are a rancher who lost her shack," he replied with total contempt. "You're going to dirty my Persian rug. I don't have space for homeless people in my house." His words fell on me like blows. Jessica didn't lift a finger to defend me. She stood still, nodding, agreeing with her husband. "Please," I begged in a whisper while my tears mixed with the rain. "I just need a corner to sleep." "Go to a homeless shelter," said Rick. "Or seek government help from those programs for people like you." "People like me?" I repeated in disbelief. "Poor people," he clarified without blinking. "Failures." And with that he slammed the door in my face. I stood there, motionless, under the storm that was getting worse, staring at the closed door of my daughter's house. My own sobs were drowned out by the noise of the downpour. How could I have come to this? How could that girl, the one I raised with so much love, do something like this to me? I walked to the sidewalk, soaked, shivering not only from the cold but from pure humiliation. I had nowhere to go. I had no money. I had absolutely nothing. It was just at that moment that I remembered the card. It had been kept in my wallet for years, folded and worn by time. I took it out with trembling hands. It read, "Mr. Alexander Mercer, CEO of Mercer Group." Alex, my Alex. The boy who had arrived at my ranch when he was barely 8 years old. He was dirty, scared, and had no one in this world. He had been brought from foster care through a social aid program. It was supposed to be only temporary, but something in his look broke my heart. He was so small, so vulnerable. It will only be a few weeks, the social workers told me. Those weeks turned into 10 years. I raised him as if he were my own son. I taught him to love the land, I taught him to read, I taught him to be a good man. My daughter Jessica was always jealous of him. She was always complaining that I paid more attention to the stray than to her. But Alex had something unique. He had a dazzling intelligence and a heart so noble that he won me over from day one. At 18 he went to university on a scholarship. He had achieved the highest grades in the entire region. Before leaving he made me a promise. Someday I will take care of you like you took care of me, Mrs. Eleanor. I swear it on my life. More than 20 years had passed since then. Our communication had become less frequent since he graduated. He was very busy building his career, and I knew he was also trying to avoid problems for my daughter Jessica. I only knew from rumors that he was doing very well in business, but I never imagined how much. With the wet card in my hands, I took out my old cell phone. It was the personal number that Alex had given me 10 years ago at my sister's funeral. "This is my direct number, Mama Eleanor," he had told me seriously. "It never changes. If you ever have a real emergency, call and I will drop everything." I dialed with trembling fingers. I didn't doubt he would remember me, but I felt foolish for calling. Would that promise still stand after so much time? Was it right to bother him with my problems? The phone rang once, twice. "Hello." His voice was deeper, more mature, but without a doubt it was him. "Alex," I whispered, feeling embarrassed to call him that. There was a silence that felt eternal. "Mama Eleanor." The way he said Mama tore my soul apart. After so many years, after everything, he still called me Mama. "Alex, son, I need help." He didn't let me say more. "Where are you?" His voice changed, becoming pure urgency. "Tell me where you are." "I'm coming there right now." While I waited for Alex under the roof of a bus stop, memories hit me hard. I couldn't stop thinking about how I had reached this point. My own daughter had slammed the door in my face, and now the boy I had picked up from the street was coming to save me. Alex entered my life in the autumn of 1995. I was 36 years old at the time. I had been a widow for 2 years since my husband died in a tractor accident. My daughter Jessica was barely 11 years old, and I was breaking my back trying to keep the ranch running alone. One day a social worker called me. She asked if I could take in a boy from the orphanage just temporarily. "It will only be a few weeks, I promise," she insisted. "Only until we find him a permanent family." When Alex arrived, he looked like a wounded animal. He had already been through 3 different foster homes, and they had returned him from all of them. "He's a difficult child," the social worker warned me. "He hardly speaks and has many nightmares." But I saw something else in those dark eyes. I saw pain, yes, but I also saw a bright light and an immense need for affection. He was small for his 8 years, skinny as a rail, and had scars on his arms that I preferred not to ask where they had come from. The first night he didn't sleep. He lay stiff in his bed like a board, surely waiting for me to kick him out at any moment. Instead, I sat on the edge of his bed and read him a story. He cried in silence without asking questions. My daughter Jessica hated Alex from the moment she saw him. "Why does that one have to stay here?" she complained at all hours. "He's a weirdo. He's not our family." "It's temporary, sweetie," I replied, not knowing the lie I was telling. Weeks passed and no one called for Alex. The social worker called every now and then, but they were always excuses. That there were no families, that he was a difficult child to place. She asked me if I could keep him just a little longer. And I could. More than that, I wanted to. Alex adapted to life on the ranch as if he had been born there. He was smart, smarter than any child I had ever met. At 9 years old, he was already keeping the accounts better than I was. At 10, he alone reorganized the entire irrigation system so that it used less water. "That boy is going to go far one day, Mrs. Eleanor," my neighbor told me. And I knew it, I felt it in my soul. But Jessica filled with more and more resentment. "Why does he help you with the numbers and I don't?" she yelled jealously when Alex sat with me to review the bills. "Because you spend your time playing with your friends, my daughter," I told her with all the patience in the world. "Because he is stealing my mom," she exploded and ran to her room. I tried to share my affection equally, but Alex needed more. He had suffered too much in his short life and needed to be cared for to be healed. Besides, he had a thirst for learning that could not be ignored. When Alex turned 12, I officially adopted him. My daughter Jessica was 15 by then, and her resentment had already turned into hate. "He is not my brother," she sentenced at the small party we threw. "And he never will be." Alex pretended he didn't care, but I saw the pain in his look. One night I found him crying in the barn. "Do you think I should go now, Mama Eleanor?" he asked me with a broken voice. "Jessica would be happier if I weren't here." "You are not going anywhere," I replied with all the firmness I could find, and I hugged him. "This is your house. You are my son just as much as she is my daughter." But Jessica never accepted it. In high school, Alex was the best student in the whole school. The teachers sought me out often to talk to me about his talent. "You should think about sending him to a good university, Mrs. Eleanor," they told me. "That boy has what it takes to go very far." Jessica, on the other hand, passed her subjects by a miracle. She was more interested in having boyfriends and spending money than sitting down to study. When Alex won a full scholarship to go to London to study business administration, Jessica exploded. "Of course he had to keep everything," she screamed out of her mind. "The perfect son who isn't even your real son." "Jessica, please calm down," I tried to tell her. "No. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of everything being Alex this, Alex that. And what about me? What about your real daughter?" "Both are my real children," I insisted. "Liar." She screamed at me with a malice I had never known in her. "You always preferred him. I wish you had never brought him." Alex heard every word from the stairs. That same night he told me that maybe it was best to go to university and never come back. "Don't say that, my son," I begged him. "This will always be your home." But the damage was done. Alex went to university. And although at first he wrote and called me, my daughter Jessica had planted that seed of doubt in him. He himself began to distance himself, spending his vacations in jobs and internships instead of coming home, just to avoid causing more fights. Meanwhile, Jessica met Rick in her senior year of high school. He was 10 years older than her and had enough money to impress her. They got married as soon as she turned 20, and from that day on, he always treated me as if I were a burden. "Mrs. Eleanor, you no longer need to work so hard," Rick would tell me with fake pity when he came to visit. "You should sell that old ranch and buy yourself a little house in town." But I was never going to sell. That ranch was my life, my identity, the place where my children grew up and where I had built my world. Alex graduated with honors and found a job in London, at a very large real estate company. His calls became shorter, his letters scarcer. And although he never stopped sending me money to help with the ranch expenses, I felt how we were drifting apart. The last time I had seen him was 10 years ago when he came for my sister's funeral. I almost didn't recognize him. Expensive suit, luxury car, with an air of an important businessman. But when he gave me the hug, he was still my Alex. "Are you okay, Mama Eleanor?" he asked me, and my heart melted. "I'm fine, son," I lied. By then the ranch was starting to have serious money problems. Jessica barely exchanged a word with him at the funeral. She treated him like a stranger, not like the brother who had lived in her house for 10 years. After that, Alex returned to his life in London. And I stayed here, fighting alone to save the ranch, while I watched my daughter become more and more ashamed of her humble origin. And now there I was, sitting in the rain, waiting for the boy I had rescued. I had hesitated so much to use that number. Did I have the right to bother him with my problems? Would that promise from 10 years ago still stand? The roar of an engine snapped me out of my thoughts. It wasn't a car engine. It was something much more powerful. And then I saw it. The helicopter came down from the gray sky like in an action movie. The propellers sliced the air with a roar that made the ground vibrate. They created ripples in the street puddles and sent all the leaves flying. The neighbors of Highland Park came out of their mansions. Some were recording with their cell phones, others just watched with their mouths open. Never in my life had I seen a helicopter so close, let alone one like that, black and luxurious. It had golden letters on the side that I didn't manage to read, but you could tell it cost millions. My heart was beating so hard I felt like it was coming out. Was it possible that Alex came in that shy and scared boy I raised, now had enough money to travel in a private helicopter? The door opened and he stepped down. For a second I didn't recognize him. The man coming toward me was tall, imposing. He was wearing a suit that surely cost more than I made in a whole year. His dark hair combed perfectly back. Very expensive sunglasses. He walked like a man who was used to getting his way. But the moment he took off his glasses and our eyes met, there he was. It was my Alex. The same sad eyes, the same shy smile I remembered. "Mama Eleanor," he said with a broken voice. And in that instant he went back to being the 8-year-old boy who arrived at my ranch. He ran the last few steps and hugged me so hard he almost broke me. I cried. I cried like I hadn't cried in years, feeling for the first time in a long time that someone truly loved me. "You're soaked," he whispered in my ear. "How long have you been out here?" "It doesn't matter, son," I told him, clinging to him. "I came." "You really came?" "Of course I came," he said, pulling away just enough to see me. "You are my mother. I will always come when you need me." He took off his coat, which was very expensive, and put it over my shoulders. It was cashmere, so soft. It smelled of fine cologne, a smell of a man of the world that I didn't recognize. "What exactly happened?" he asked me, taking my cold hands in his. I told him everything. The fire, the ruin of the ranch, how I came here to ask for help. When I got to the part where Rick had humiliated me and slammed the door in my face, I saw Alex's jaw tighten. His eyes turned hard, cold. "They told you what?" he asked, and his voice sounded so icy it gave me a chill. "Alex, son, I don't want to cause trouble," I said quickly. "I just needed a place to sleep." "You are already home, Mama Eleanor," he told me with a firmness that calmed me. "Listen to me well. Never again in your life will you have to beg anyone for a roof." Just at that moment, the door to Jessica's mansion opened. My daughter ran out with Rick on her heels. The two of them had changed clothes. They were very presentable, as if they were ready to receive an important visitor. "Excuse me," shouted Jessica, approaching with a completely fake smile. "Is there a problem with the noise?" "It's just that the neighbors are complaining about the helicopter." Alex turned slowly to look at her. He didn't say a single word, he just watched her with an expression I couldn't decipher. "Jessica," I said nervously. "It's Alex. Don't you remember him?" My daughter's fake smile vanished completely. Her eyes traveled from Alex to the helicopter and back to Alex. "Alex," she murmured as if she couldn't believe it. "Alexander Mercer." "Hello, sister," he said with a totally flat voice. There was no love in those words. There was no forgiveness. Only a coldness that broke my heart. Rick stepped forward, extending his hand with that hypocritical smile I knew so well. What a surprise. "I'm Rick Sterling, Jessica's husband. I've heard a lot about you, huh?" Alex looked at the extended hand but didn't take it. "I doubt it," he said simply. The silence that followed was so tense you could cut it with a knife. Jessica was wringing her hands. Rick had to lower his and looked terribly uncomfortable. And Alex just looked at them like a predator studying its prey. "Well," Jessica finally said, forcing another smile. "How wonderful that you've come to visit my mom. Although, maybe next time you should land somewhere else. This is a very exclusive residential area and—" "I know," Alex interrupted her. "I know this area very well." Something in his tone made Jessica shut up immediately. "In fact," Alex continued, "I know most of the people who live here. They are my clients." "Your clients?" asked Rick, confused. Alex smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant smile. "I am the owner of the bank that finances most of the mortgages in this neighborhood, including yours." I saw how Rick's face lost all color. Your bank?" he stuttered. "Mercer Group," said Alex calmly. "Maybe you've heard of us. We are one of the largest real estate companies in the country. We also have interests in banking, construction, and urban development." Jessica wobbled a bit as if someone had hit her. You're a millionaire," she whispered. "Billionaire," Alex corrected without boasting, as if it were a simple fact. "But that's not the important thing here." He turned to me and his expression softened. The important thing is that my mother needs help and I came to give it to her. Your mother? Rick spat, recovering a bit of his arrogance. She is not your mother, she is just the woman who raised you for a few years. The change in Alex was instant and terrifying. His face hardened like stone and he took a step toward Rick. Even though Alex wasn't particularly big, Rick stepped back instinctively. Careful, said Alex with a voice so low I could barely hear him. Watch your words very closely when you speak of my mother. Alex. I intervened quickly, putting myself between them. Son, it's not worth it. He looked at me and took a deep breath, controlling himself. You're right, he said, taking my arm gently. It's not worth it. He addressed Jessica and Rick one last time. By the way, he said with that cold voice again, as owner of Mercer Capital Bank, I have ordered an immediate and detailed review of your mortgage loan. You have 72 hours. 72 hours for what? Asked Jessica with evident panic in her voice. Alex smiled again, that smile that didn't reach his eyes. To pray. To pray that every document, every signature, and every penny of your history is perfectly in order. Because I'm going to put my best auditors to review every paper. And if I happen to find the slightest irregularity, I'm going to keep this house. And everything else. The silence that followed was deafening. Only the distant noise of the helicopter and the dripping of the rain could be heard. Let's go, Mama Eleanor, said Alex, putting his arm around my shoulders. We have a lot to talk about. As we walked toward the helicopter, I heard Jessica screaming behind us. Wait, Alex. Wait, we can talk about this. But Alex didn't turn around. He kept walking forward, shielding me from the rain with his body. Are you really the owner of their bank? I asked him while he helped me into the helicopter. Among other things, he said, helping me fasten my seatbelt. He looked at me, and the coldness in his eyes had been replaced by a deep and controlled fury. Mama, I don't understand what happened, he said seriously. You are the most hardworking and honest woman I know. I can't wrap my head around how you lost the ranch. I don't understand how it came to this. Oh, son, neither do I. The last few years were so difficult. No, he interrupted me, but with kindness. I'm going to find out. Right this instant, I'm going to call my lawyers and my financial team. They have orders to investigate Rick and investigate Jessica. I want them to review every invoice and every movement of the ranch in the last 10 years. I gave them 72 hours to bring me answers. As the helicopter rose, I looked down and saw Jessica and Rick standing in their perfect garden, looking up with expressions of absolute horror. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel pity for my daughter. I felt vindicated. Alex's estate left me breathless. It was like something out of a magazine. Very high ceilings, huge windows that went from floor to ceiling, furniture that looked like works of art. Everything was elegant but warm, sophisticated but cozy. It wasn't an ostentatious house like Jessica's, it was a refined house. Welcome home, Mama Eleanor, Alex told me while an employee helped us down from the helicopter in the huge backyard. They gave me dry clothes, a soft cotton dress, and a silk robe. They prepared hot tea for me in a fine porcelain cup. We sat in his study, an impressive room surrounded by books and photographs. I recognized some photos from his university graduation, awards he had won, and business events. But in the center of his desk, in a silver frame, was the photo taken the day I adopted him. He was 12 years old and smiled shyly while I hugged him. I have never taken that photo off there, he told me, noticing that I was looking at it. It is the first thing I see every morning when I arrive at my office. He sat in front of me. He was no longer the billionaire businessman who got off the helicopter. In that moment he went back to being my Alex. But this time his face was tense. 2 days had passed since my rescue. 2 days in which they treated me like a queen and took care of me, while Alex's team worked non-stop. Mama Eleanor, he began with that seriousness I remembered from when he was a child, when something worried him. We spent the last 72 hours investigating. And what my team discovered about Rick and Jessica is a disgusting betrayal. My stomach tightened. What kind of things? Alex didn't take out an old folder. He activated a giant screen on the wall of his study. We discovered why you lost the ranch. And it wasn't bad luck, Mom. It was systematic theft. Rick has been swindling you for 8 years. The words fell like stones. He showed me the contracts on the screen. Do you remember 6 years ago when you needed to repair the electrical system of the main barn? I nodded. It had been a very expensive repair. It had cost me almost $15,000. And do you remember who recommended the contractor? My heart sank. Rick, I whispered. Exactly. He connected you with a company that was his property, although you didn't know it. And look at this. He pointed to the invoice. He charged you $15,000 for a job that, according to our experts, actually cost $2,500. The other $12,500 went straight to his pocket. I felt a terrible nausea as if I had been hit. But that's not all, Alex continued, showing other papers. The loans you asked for the cattle fence, the financing of the water pump, the ranch insurance that he kindly renewed for you. Each word was a stab. In everything. Rick was involved in everything. In total, said Alex with controlled fury, during the last 8 years, Rick stole $350,000 from you through overpricing, hidden commissions, and fake insurance. $350,000. A fortune. That's why you had financial problems. That's why you couldn't pay for full house insurance. Because of them, you lost everything in the fire. I remained silent, trying to process the magnitude of that betrayal. Jessica, did she know? Alex nodded gravely. Here are the bank statements of the account they have together. Look at the deposits. They match exactly the dates when Rick swindled you. He showed me a sheet full of numbers. There it was, in black and white. My own daughter had been living a life of luxury with the money they stole from me. The pearl necklace she wore to her friend's wedding last year, said Alex, pointing to a transaction. $12,000. Paid the same day Rick charged you $18,000 to repair the stable roof. A job that actually only cost $6,000. Tears of pure rage and pain ran down my face. Why? I murmured. Why did they do this to me? Alex stood up and knelt in front of me, taking my hands. Because they thought you would never find out. Because they believed you were just a naive rancher who didn't understand business. Because they didn't respect you. His voice hardened. But they were wrong. They thought you were alone and they forgot about me. What are you going to do now, son? I asked him. Alex stood up and walked to the window, looking at his impeccable garden. I already did. In these 72 hours, we didn't just investigate. We acted. Yesterday afternoon, my bank bought the mortgage on Jessica and Rick's house. Now they owe me $1,200,000. And can you do that legally? Alex turned to me with a smile that wasn't kind at all. When you have as much money as I do, Mama Eleanor, you can do many things legally. Especially when the other people have committed fraud. He walked over to his desk and took out another set of documents. My team also found solid evidence of tax evasion. It seems Rick never reported to the IRS the income he obtained by swindling you. The IRS would be fascinated to see this information. Alex, I said slowly, what exactly do you want from them? He sat down in front of me again. His expression was different, with a hardness in his eyes I had never seen as a child. I want them to pay back every penny they stole from you, he said calmly. With interest. And I want Jessica to admit that she knew perfectly well what was happening. If they don't, they are going to lose the house. Rick is going to face criminal charges for fraud, and I am going to make sure all of Dallas knows what kind of people they are. At that precise moment, his phone rang. Alex looked at the screen and smiled. Speaking of the devil, he murmured, showing me the caller ID. It was Jessica. Are you going to answer? I asked him. Of course, he said and pressed the speaker button. Speak, Jessica. Alex. Her voice sounded desperate, choked. Alex, we need to talk. Please come to the house, please. And why would I want to go back to that house? Why? Because we are family, she said, and her voice broke. Because we made mistakes and we want to fix them. Alex looked at me, raising an eyebrow as if asking me what to do. He said into the phone. Is that what they call fraud now? Mistakes. There was a silence on the other end. Alex, please, Jessica continued, now clearly crying. Just give us a chance to explain. All right, said Alex after a moment. But I'm not going alone. My mother is coming with me. Yes, yes, said Jessica very quickly. Of course, whatever you want. Alex hung up and looked at me. Are you ready, Mama Eleanor? Are you ready to face your daughter? I thought about all those years of silent humiliations, all the times I lowered my head, how she had slammed the door in my face when I needed her most. Yes, I said, and even I was surprised by the firmness in my voice. I'm ready. As we prepared to go back, Alex put his hand on my shoulder. Mama Eleanor, I want you to know something, he told me. Whatever happens in there, you will never have to beg for anything ever again in your life. You will never again accept crumbs from people who don't value you. How can you be so sure, son? Alex smiled. This time it was a real smile, full of that love I remembered from when he was a child. Because now you have someone who would move heaven and earth for you. Someone who never forgot that when the world turned its back on me, you told me I was your son. He hugged me tight. And in that moment I knew that whatever happened with Jessica, I was no longer alone. I had recovered my true son. When we returned to Jessica's house, the atmosphere was totally different. There was no more arrogance nor contempt. The door opened before we could knock. There was my daughter with eyes red and swollen from crying, her face distorted by fear. Mom, she said with a broken voice, wanting to hug me. Thank you for coming. But I didn't move toward her. I stayed standing next to Alex, feeling for the first time in years that I had control of the situation. Jessica, I told her with a voice I didn't even recognize myself. We have to talk. Rick came out behind her, visibly nervous. He had taken off the expensive suit and was wearing casual clothes, but he still looked like what he was. A man who had just realized he had underestimated his opponent. Mr. Mercer, said Rick, trying to regain some composure. Look, I think this is all a big misunderstanding. There was no misunderstanding, Mr. Sterling, Alex cut him off with an icy voice. What there was fraud. A lot of fraud. Jessica ushered us into the living room. The same living room where they had thrown so many parties and elegant dinners with the money they stole from me. Now it felt different, it felt small, it felt fake. Do you want something to drink? A glass of water? Asked Jessica nervously. We didn't come for a social visit, Jessica, I replied, again surprised by my own strength. We came to talk business. Alex took out his cell phone and put it on the coffee table. I'm going to record this conversation, he announced. For everyone's legal protection. I saw Rick swallow hard again. Is that necessary? Considering that you have been stealing from my mother for 8 years straight, said Alex calmly. Yes. It is very necessary. Jessica collapsed onto the sofa, dropping all pretense. Alex, please, she pleaded in a whisper. We are family. Family. I repeated, feeling how the rage of so many years finally found a voice. You call that family? Slamming the door in my face when my ranch was burning? Family is stealing from me for 8 years. Mom, I didn't know, she started to say. Liar. I exploded, standing up. Don't lie to me. Alex showed me the bank accounts. I saw every deposit, I saw every purchase you made with my stolen money. That pearl necklace you bought. The trip to Europe last year. The new SUV. All while I couldn't even pay for my house insurance. I thought, stammered Jessica. Thought what? I shouted, getting closer to her. You thought I was a fool who would never notice. Rick tried to intervene. Mrs. Eleanor, please, you have to understand. Business is sometimes complicated. Alex stood up so fast that Rick stepped back instinctively. Sit down. Alex ordered him with a voice that allowed no argument. And don't speak to my mother like that again. The silence that followed was so tense you could cut it with a knife. Alex returned to his seat and took out the same documents he had shown me in his study. Here are the facts, he said, spreading the papers on the table. During 8 years, Rick overcharged her for services, invented fake commissions, and sold fraudulent insurance to my mother. The total they stole amounts to $350,000. Jessica stifled a moan when she heard the figure. And Jessica directly received $100,000 of that money, continued Alex without mercy. Money she knew came from the fraud against her own mother. That's not true, shouted Jessica, but her voice held no conviction. Alex slid a sheet of paper toward her. Do you want to deny that this is your signature on the receipt for the $12,000 necklace? It is dated the same day Rick charged your mother $18,000 for a repair that actually cost $6,000. Jessica looked at the paper and crumbled completely. Mr. Mercer, whispered Rick. What do you want from us? Alex leaned back in the chair, completely calm. I want justice, he said simply. I want my mother to recover every penny you stole from her. With interest. How much would that be? Asked Rick with a trembling voice. $500,000, replied Alex. Or you lose the house. 500,000, shouted Rick. That's impossible. We don't have that money. You should have thought about that before stealing, I replied, finding my voice again. Alex checked his expensive watch. I'm going to give you an option, he said. You can pay my mother the $500,000 within a period of 30 days. Or you can sign the deed to this house right now, transferring it to her as partial payment. The house, moaned Jessica. This is our house. Bought with stolen money, I reminded her. Every brick, every piece of furniture, every one of your nice things was paid for with my suffering. Mom, please, pleaded Jessica, falling to her knees in front of me. Forgive me, I'm so sorry. I didn't know that Rick. Yes, you knew. I shouted at her, releasing decades of held-back pain. You knew perfectly well where the money was coming from and you didn't care. Because you have always believed that I deserved less than you. That's not true. Of course it's true. I continued, with tears of rage running down my cheeks. Since Alex came into our lives, you have been jealous. Jealous that someone truly loved me. Jealous that someone valued me. I love you, she began to say. No. I interrupted her. You tolerated me. You put up with me when you needed something from me. But love is what Alex showed me when he came for me in the rain. Love is what you denied me when I needed you most. Jessica kept crying on the floor, but for the first time in my life her tears didn't move me. Where is the money now? Alex asked Rick. Rick ran his hands through his hair, completely defeated. We invested it in the business in this house. It's not liquid. Then you have two options, said Alex, standing up. You sign the papers transferring this house to my mother, or you face criminal charges for fraud, tax evasion before the IRS, and scams. Criminal charges? Whispered Rick. Alex nodded. I already have all the documentation prepared to hand it over to the district attorney's office. I'm just waiting for your decision. But, if we sign the house, began Jessica, we'll have to leave. That's right, I finished for her. Just like I had to leave when I lost everything. Where are we going to go? Cried Jessica. Alex shrugged. That is not my problem. And it is not my mother's problem either. For a moment no one spoke. Only Jessica's crying and Rick's agitated breathing could be heard. Finally, Alex took some documents out of his briefcase. These are the contracts, he said, placing them on the table. The house is transferred completely to Eleanor Mercer. Mercer? Asked Jessica, confused. My mother is going to legally change her last name, explained Alex. She no longer wants to carry the name of the family that betrayed her. Those words fell like a final sentence. I saw how Jessica understood that she was not only losing her house, she was losing her mother forever. You have 24 hours to decide, said Alex, putting away his pen. Tomorrow at 6 in the evening I'll come back for an answer. If you haven't signed by then, I'm filing criminal charges Monday morning. As we walked toward the door, Jessica ran after us. Mom, she shouted, grabbing my arm. Mom, please, I'm your daughter. I stopped and looked her in the eyes. I saw for the first time not the girl I raised with love, but the woman she had become. Selfish, manipulative, and cruel. No, I told her with a calm that surprised me. You are the stranger who closed the door on me when I needed it. My true son is the one who came for me. I pulled my arm from her grip and kept walking. "This isn't over," shouted Rick behind us. Alex turned around one last time. "Yes," he said with that cold voice I already knew. "Yes, it is over. It's just that you haven't realized it yet." As we drove away in Alex's car, I didn't look back. For the first time in my life, I was walking forward toward justice and toward the family I truly deserved. 6 months later, I am sitting in the garden of my new house, the one that used to be Jessica's. I am watching the flowers grow that I planted where her ostentatious fountain used to be. The afternoon sun filters through the trees that Alex had planted, purely fruit trees like the ones I had on my lost ranch. Jessica and Rick signed the papers that same night, 23 hours after the ultimatum Alex gave them. They came to the house the next day with their suitcases and boxes. They moved to a small apartment in a rundown neighborhood, in the less elegant part of Dallas. Rick got a job as a used car salesman. Apparently, when all your commercial references turn their backs on you because they find out you're a scammer, options run out fast. Jessica tried to talk to me the day they left. "Mom," she told me with eyes full of tears, "I know that someday you're going to forgive me. I know you will." I looked at her without rage, without pain, only with a very calm sadness. "There is nothing to forgive, Jessica," I replied. "Because to forgive, you would first have to matter to me." Those were the last words we exchanged. Now, as I water my new roses, I hear the noise of Alex's car arriving at the entrance. He comes to have dinner with me every Friday. It is a tradition we started as soon as I moved here. "Hello, Mama Eleanor," he says, giving me a kiss on the cheek. He always brings fresh flowers and a bottle of that wine I like. "How was your week, son?" I ask him while we go to the kitchen. "Heavy," he says, loosening his tie. "But I closed the deal on the land in Dubai. It's going to be a housing development for families, for middle-income people." My chest swells with pride every time he tells me about his projects. Alex didn't just get rich. He got rich helping other families have a decent home. "And I have news for you," he says suddenly with a mysterious smile. "What kind of news?" He sits at the kitchen table, a new table we bought together, simple but pretty, and takes out his cell phone. "Do you remember Emily, the architect at my company?" Of course I remember Emily. I have seen her at some dinners. She is an intelligent woman, very kind, and treats Alex with all the respect and love he deserves. "Of course, son, what about her?" Alex shows me a photo on his phone. It is a woman's hand with a beautiful engagement ring, simple but very elegant. "Alex!" I shouted and hugged him with all my strength. "How wonderful! I asked her to marry me last night," he says, smiling like I hadn't seen him smile since he was a child. "And I wanted to ask you something. Would you like to plan the wedding with us?" My eyes filled with tears, but they were tears of pure happiness. "Of course I would love to," I told him. "But are you sure? Is Emily sure she wants an old mother-in-law like me involved in everything?" Alex laughed. "Mama Eleanor, she already sees you as her family. In fact, she told me that the only reason she agreed to marry me is because I came as a package deal with you." We had dinner in the dining room, the same dining room where Jessica threw her elegant dinners to impress her stuck-up friends. Now it is a warm place where Alex and I talk about our week, our dreams, and our plans. "Do you know anything about Jessica?" he asks me suddenly while we serve dessert. It is the first time in months he mentions her. "No," I answer truthfully. "And honestly, I don't want to know." Alex nods, understanding. "The neighbor told me she is working as a receptionist in a doctor's office," I continue. "And that Rick already lost that job as a car salesman." "Does it make you sad?" asks Alex. I stay thinking about his question while I cut the apple pie I baked in the afternoon. "No," I finally answer. "It gives me peace." "Peace." "Yes," I explain, serving him a big slice. "For the first time in my life, I don't feel guilty for being happy. I don't feel bad for having nice things. I feel like I don't have to justify my life to anyone." Alex takes my hand over the table. "It gives me so much pleasure to hear you say that." After dinner, we go out to the garden. I put a small sitting area outside with comfortable chairs and a small table for tea. It is my favorite place in the whole house. "Do you regret anything?" Alex asks me out of nowhere. "Being so hard on her?" It is a question I have asked myself many times these months. No, I answer without hesitation. Do you know why? Why? Because for 63 years I always put what others needed before mine. I always felt obliged to forgive, to forget, to be the good one who puts up with everything just to keep the peace. Alex listens to me attentively. But when you came for me that night in the rain, you gave me something I had never had. I continue. What thing? The certainty that I deserved to be loved without conditions. Without having to earn that love every day. You always deserved it, Mama Eleanor, he says with a soft voice. Maybe, I admit, but I had never felt it, until you showed me. We stayed quiet for a while, listening to the wind in the trees. There is something else I wanted to tell you, says Alex. What? Emily and I were thinking, after the wedding we would like to have children. My heart filled with such great joy I thought my chest was going to explode. And we would like our children to grow up here with you. For you to take care of them, like you took care of me. Now yes, tears run down my cheeks, but they are of the deepest happiness I have felt. Are you sure, son? We are both completely sure, says Alex. We want them to know that family is not blood, it is love. We want them to grow up with the grandmother who is going to love them without conditions. Grandmother. I repeated the word, savoring it. I'm going to be a grandmother. You are going to be the best grandmother in the world, Mama Eleanor, Alex tells me, hugging me. Later, after Alex leaves, I stay a while longer in the garden. I look toward the house, my house with its warm lights on and its rooms full of the furniture I chose, of the memories I do want to keep. In my bedroom, on the dresser, I have a new photo in a frame. It is Alex and I, the day I signed the house papers. He is hugging me and we both smile as if we had won the lottery. And the truth is, in a way we did. I no longer have photos of Jessica in sight. I put some in a box in the closet not because I want to see them, but because it was part of my life and I'm not going to pretend she didn't exist. But I don't look at them. I don't miss her. It doesn't hurt anymore. That night, before falling asleep, I call Emily. Eleanor, she answers with her cheerful voice. How are you? I'm perfect, my dear, I tell her. I was calling to congratulate you on the engagement. Thank you. I'm so excited, she says. Alex told me that you are going to help us plan the wedding. With all the pleasure in the world, I reply. But hey, I wanted to ask you something. Anything, tell me. What would you think? What would you both think if you used the garden here for the ceremony? I've been taking great care of the flowers and I think by spring it's going to look beautiful. There is a pause on the other end and then Emily responds, her voice full of emotion. Would you really do that for us, Eleanor? Emily, I tell her with all the affection I feel for her, for Alex, for this family we are forming, there is nothing in this world that would make me happier. When I hang up the phone, I stay lying in my new bed in my new house thinking about this new life I have. It is not the life I planned when I was young. It is much better. Because it is a life where I am loved for who I am, not for what I can give. It is a life where I have a son who chose me as his mother when no one else did. It is a life where I am going to be a grandmother to children who will grow up knowing what unconditional love is. It is a life where I finally understood that true family is not the one you are born into, but the one you build. And it is a life worth every tear it cost me to get here. The next day, Alex brings Emily to lunch. We spend the whole afternoon planning the wedding, choosing flowers, deciding on the menu. Emily calls me Mom for the first time, and when she does, I feel like my heart is going to burst with happiness. 3 months later, on a perfect spring day, I watch my son marry the woman he loves in the garden I planted myself. The guests are purely people who truly love us, his friends from the office, some of my new neighbors, good people who know what family means. Jessica is not invited. I don't miss her. When the priest asks if anyone objects, I look at the empty chairs where I once thought my daughter would sit, and the only thing I feel is peace. Alex hugs me after the ceremony. Thank you, Mama Eleanor, he whispers in my ear. Why, son? For teaching me that true love is unconditional. For showing me that family is the one you choose. Thanks to you, I reply, for choosing me. That night, since everyone has left, I stay alone in the garden, where there are rose petals thrown everywhere as if they were confetti. In a few months, This same garden will hear the laughter of grandchildren who are not yet born. It will be the place where I will teach them to plant flowers, to tend the land, and to understand that the most beautiful things only grow when you water them with love. I don't know what will become of the woman to whom I gave life, but that is no longer my concern. I know exactly what happened to the woman I decided to be. Finally, I learned to love myself just as much as I loved others. And with that, it is enough and more than enough. If this story touched your heart, support us by leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. New stories are already waiting for you on your screen.